down 25.8% in 2022. Is Alibaba stock a buy for 2023? I'm going to answer that question in this video using several critical metrics, so let's get right into it. The first thing I'm going to look at is Alibaba's revenue growth, and going back to before 2016, growth has significantly slowed, in fact, turning negative 2.4% in its most recent quarter, as COVID lockdowns in China have really taken a toll on consumer spending on its platform and its brick and mortar stores. However, investors can be delighted that China has started easing COVID restrictions, moderately reopening its economy, and that should be positive to Alibaba's growth over the next few quarters. It remains to be seen if China's economy will have the kind of reopening bump that other economies around the world had when they reopened after several 1 or 2 years of lockdowns. China's been in lockdown longer than any other country. So it's curious how that economy is going to respond as the government eases restrictions. So that's something to keep an eye out for. Another thing to keep an eye out for is government regulations against Alibaba. The government has been a bit more restrictive against the company, restricting its fintech arm from growing, slapping a $1 billion fine. And so the government to company relationship is not in a position that is friendly to investors. So that's something to keep an eye out for as well. The next thing I want to show you is Alibaba's operating income, which has been steadily growing. I shouldn't say steadily growing, but it has been growing with fluctuations in between. If we go back to before 2019, operating income of let's say $1.5 billion, close to $1.5 billion. And that's been, if we draw a line from there to its most recent quarter, of operating income of 3.67 billion, as the company has grown its top line, expanded its business segments. It it this year will be another challenging year for Alibaba, but it should continue adding to its top line growth. Analysts expect this 2020 year to be its slowest revenue growth rate in its history, but going forward, I expected revenue growth to reaccelerate over the next few years as the percentage of e-commerce spending to overall spending continues to grow, and China's massive market, consumer market, rising consumer incomes really fuels growth for Alibaba. The next thing to look at is its cash flow from operations, which, similar to its operating income, has been growing with fluctuations in between. But again, if you look at before 2019 and you draw a trend line here, its cash flow from operations has been growing. All right, the final thing to consider here to determine if Alibaba stock is a buy for 2023 is its valuation. And I'm showing you here the price to free cash flow on top and the price to earnings ratio forward going in on the bottom. Starting with the price to free cash flow of 13.46, it's near the lower end of its trading range going back to before 2019. So investors have rarely had an opportunity to buy this stock at this valuation. And if it was cheaper later in 2022 in terms of price to free cash flow, but I prefer this valuation here at 13.46 than the lower valuation 4 or 5 months ago before China started reopening the economy. I feel that the risk versus reward is better at this higher valuation, but without the risk of the continued lockdowns in China. So I prefer it at this higher valuation than the lower end a few months ago. And then looking at the forward PE ratio of 15, again near the lower end of the range going back to 2021. It was lower at near 8 a few months ago, but again that was still with the risks of COVID lockdowns in China, meaning that slower growth and slower profitability for Baba. So again, I like the elimination or reduction of that lockdown risk in China, although there is no telling if they'll remain open if cases continue to rise and severe illnesses continue to rise. Still, I like that the country is finally starting to reopen after a very, very long time in lockdowns. So to answer the question, is Alibaba stock a buy for 2023? I'm going to say yes, the stock is a buy for 2023. All right, that's all I've got for this video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. I want to thank the Motley Fool for sponsoring this video. Visit fool.com/parkev for the 10 best stocks to buy now.